This video is about the 72-hour bag, or the get home bag, or emergency 3-day pack, whatever you want to call it. It's designed to last you for 72 hours, like FEMA and all of those people recommend. So it's mostly designed just to get you to your next safe location, whether it's home, a rendezvous point, maybe a cache if you have one. It could be a storm shelter, or another safe area where maybe you have a group of people to meet up with. So all of the things that you would need is going to be in this pack that I got on. And I'm going to go through each part individually. I'm going to just break down the pack, take it all apart, and I'll probably have some follow-on videos with additional sections that I'll discuss, communications and planning, and some other sections that will need to be elaborated on a little more in depth at a later time. So when I get down to the river, I'll come back on and give you the rest of the video. Okay, here I am down by the river in Austin, Texas. I don't know if you just heard the sirens go by, so I'm not really that far from the city, believe it or not. But this is a nice little spot I found, and I'm just going to look for a place here along the river where I can break out my kit and show it to you. Okay, I'll come back on in just a moment. Okay, so this spot's as good as any, so I'm gonna go ahead and just tell you about the bag. First thing, one of the things I really like to have is this chamag that I got in Afghanistan years ago. I'm not saying you need it, but if you wanted to use it as a face mask, there you go. But I'm just going to use it to cushion my knee on this hard limestone. Okay, so first of all, you want to consider what your regional environment is. What state do you live in? Are you in a desert, mountains, prairie, woodland environment? What are the most likely problems you face? Is your government going to set up checkpoints and take away your rights, restrict your movements? You also got to figure out what kind of environment you have, as far as, are you in a rural environment or an urban environment? Those are going to change your priorities and the type of stuff you're going to carry, and probably the kind of bag you're going to carry, and a lot of other things. Also the time of year. In a place like Texas, it doesn't, the environment doesn't change too much. California is the same way, but obviously you live in a northern land like Maine or Minnesota or someplace like that, you're going to have completely different priorities for what you're going to have in a bag like this. Of course, it's going to be a lot bigger in a winter environment. Now, you also have to figure out whatever unique circumstances there are. Do you need medications, things like that? So you want to have some extra meds in here, things like that. If you have kids, you probably want to put together a little kit like this for the kids. They can carry their own food and water at least. Some small things you'd have to figure out. That might be a future video topic, but not today. So first, let me get into what the kid actually, what is actually in this bag. I'm just gonna start on the outside. Most important things right up front. Okay, I got my light. It's dark out. I need to see what the heck's going on. I've always got my light right there in the front. Got a red lens. Got a white lens. To go right on my hat. So that's kind of a priority. I also have rechargeable batteries in there because you never know. You have the ability to recharge them, you want to do that. The second compartment here, this is what I would call my emergency compartment, my emergency comms compartment, whatever you want to call it. Get a little bit closer. So you can see here, I have it's a this is a ham radio that I have extra antenna right here that I attach to it. I have an extra battery. I have a couple other little things that I would use in conjunction with it. But to start off with, I also have right here wire pull smoke grenades. So take the cap off, you got a little pull right here. You get these at a lot of paint, airsoft, paintball players will use these things a lot. Works just like a regular military smoke grenade. Probably not quite as much capacity, but it does have good burn time. Probably, I think, a minute and a half or something like that. Comes in many different colors, so you can also use the different colors to communicate with people, with friendlies, and you can also use it to mask your movements. Or say if you're taking somebody's taking pot shots at you from far away, you could drop a couple smokes to obscure your area while you get the hell out of there. So a lot of uses. I think it's really important. I also have it into a kit that would just come straight out like that, and I could strap that on my belt, or I could strap that into to whatever I want. If I had some tactical kit that I could have, I could stick it on there as well. Again, also we have chem lights. You know how these work. Can't really see it. So all you do is you break it, and you can see it starting to glow. So these are excellent for signaling as well. One of the other things you can do is you can tie it on the end of a cord, a long cord, and you can twirl it in a circle, and it'll make a big round, red circle that can be spotted a mile away for any kind of aircraft or anybody like that. So if you're trying to draw attention or signal to somebody, excellent device for that. They also have an 8-hour burn time. I have something else further inside the kit that I'm going to show you that actually it's a little sheath that goes over this that's kind of cool that you can adjust it. So if you wanted to have more or less light, it's something that kind of specifically designed for the military, but you can get them for 10 or 11 bucks on Amazon, and I think it's pretty cool. Okay. So this is sort of like I said, my little signal panel. I got all my emergency stuff. I also have an emergency fire starter right here on the front. You may have seen these guys advertised. Great stuff. I'll probably demonstrate this at another time. Okay, so that's my first little compartment. That's my emergency compartment. Now you have a compartment right below that that is an intermediate compartment, which is actually designed for, it's got Velcro, so you could put in a holster here if you had a sidearm. It's ambidextrous, it opens from either side, so you have access to it. A lot of bags do this. This is a cool bag, but it's pretty expensive. It's $5.11. Covert 18, I believe it's called. Now, you could, position the holster any way you want. Extra magazines, whatever you need. That's what it's made for. I don't have a gun in there today, but what I do have in here is the rest of my planning kit. So I start talking about the important things that you need. An emergency section, but I have a separate comm section which actually have all my communications plans. I have other things in here. So this is a tactical radio cordage that I would put in my ear, so I can actually have the radio on with my clothes on, and nobody really even know I had a radio, and all I could do is a little push to talk button. So the years I did security, I always wore those things underneath my uniform or whatever, and you could just push a button and nobody would even know you're talking to somebody else, but you can have help on the way. And most people don't even know you have it in your ear unless they're really close to you on there. I have a good waterproof bag. This could hang on your neck. You could do whatever you want with this. So any of your extra electronics or batteries or anything like that you'd want to carry, this is a great place to put them. Like I said, the little little earpiece goes in. Okay, so protractor for your maps. I have these maps are excellent. I'll put the link on for you guys. You can get them from Nat Geo. Free maps of your area for download. Gives you pretty good little maps. They're more detailed than the emergency survival chart that I make, but they don't cover nearly as big an area. So you would have to have a whole notebook of these to cover. I mean, I'm talking a big notebook to cover the area that my ESC covers. Okay, so before I get into this, I'm going to talk one more thing here. Now, this is a Faraday bag, so it's, I don't know what the hell it's made out of, but it's some sort of a metallic type of thing. Any important information, hard drive, you can put all the kind of information you need. You can have any of your personal information, IDs, copies of certificates, licenses, all that kind of stuff. You definitely keep in something like this for safekeeping. I recommend keeping it in one of these bags. That way, if there is something major like an EMP or a CME, which basically a solar flare or an electronic attack would short out all of our computers and everything. You lose everything if you had a Faraday cage. A bag of these blackout Faraday shields. I got a couple little ones, a couple big ones, so I can put my laptop in there. I can put anything I wanted in a big Faraday bag like that, and keep it protected theoretically. Okay. Of course, I've talked about my emergency survival chart many times on other videos. I'm not going to get too in detail about it, but it's designed sort of like a bag where your most important things are up front. So right here, you open it, you're going to have, okay, emergency action plan, what are you going to do in case of emergency? The next steps. You're going to shelter in place. There's a section about shelter in place. And if you're going to evacuate, and what your recommendations, what areas you're in, specific to your environment. So these will be specific, this one's specific to Austin, where I am right now. It also goes down to San Antonio and the other surrounding areas. Of course, you go on to the next section, all kinds of planning information that you might need, planning formulas, distance, speed, and time formulas, some basic navigation and military type patrolling things. It's not any specific tactics, but it's more of common sense things that, well, may not be common sense to the average civilian, but anybody who's been in any kind of combat arms would know it's pretty much common sense. But that stuff's on here for people who don't know about it. Of course, there's some more advanced stuff like evading trackers and some other stuff that's kind of interesting and cool to have. And then, of course, the table of contents. On the back side, I have all my emergency medical stuff. So if you have anything you could think of, from a blister to a snake bite to gunshot wound, it is specifically talked about on here. And then, of course, building a fire, and then a signal panel that could be used as an identifier to somebody, to show them who you are, friend or foe, type of thing. Okay. I do have another little smaller section here, which is sort of where I keep a lot of my everyday stuff. But this is an attachment from a water bladder, which I'll get into later. And then this is what they call a Silcot tool. It's very cool. Since I'm in an urban environment, these little keys, I don't know how well you can see it, but it can be used. This little key right here, it can be used for all types of things, for municipal water supplies, electrical cabinets, railroad cabinets, all kinds of different things that most people don't typically have devices like this for. Also has little screwdriver attachments, and for $8 on Amazon, I think it's a pretty good investment.